Me a commencer. Don't know what's going on with my laptop. Hey everyone, good evening. I can't see, my eyes are getting bad or I'm getting really old. Hope everyone's doing well. Shireen, are you in here? Just shout me or say something. Unmute quickly and remute, just to let me know.
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
So
I'm here.
Good. Hi, you're looking very pretty in pink. Evening, everybody. So welcome to another week, another session. I'm looking like a mad gal, but that's what the thing said sometimes. Whilst everybody's speaking, I will maybe make myself look a bit more presentable, but it's been one of those days. I've had hearings all day, and then I had to go and cook. Today we're definitely talking about one of the main things that is going on amongst not only our young people, but a lot of our parents. And that is with regards to our mental health and well-being. We've all seen what's gone on, for example, in Ukraine, Russia. So if there's ever a time where something that we need to really think about and put in place for all of us, it is about our mental health and well-being. And, you know, it is something that that we as a community don't really talk about. One of the things I also find is that with our children, and even for parents, there's still a massive stigma attached to if your child has a neurological condition or maybe suspected of such, etc., and they're not getting the treatment and support they need. It's bad enough coming up against a system that is systematically racist, let alone if we as parents don't really have an understanding around what could cause our children to behave in a particular way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a long-term thing. It could be something where they just may need that support for maybe 3 to 6 months, and then thereafter they're fine. So the stigma that's attached to it for our children as well as ourselves as adults, we really want to try and break that down this evening, and also give you some pointers of where to go, how you can navigate the system, how you can get the support that you may feel you need without actually being scared. Because I know a lot of people don't ask for support because they think social services is going to come in and take their children. They think, you know, all kinds of different things. So hopefully tonight we should hopefully give you guys, make you a bit more easy with regards to what is out there, what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't say, and go from there. So as I said already, Shireen is online, and she's going to give you a quick introduction as to who she is, what she does. Yeah, run, my girl.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shireen Barras, and I am the director of SAB Counseling Services and SAB Black Therapy Network. And I do psychotherapy basically for teens and adults. And I also run quite a few community groups, both with the 100 Black Men of London, as well as local disability charity. So yeah, I'm here. You're muted, Cheryl.
Hi, sorry. Thank you, Shireen. Carlette, are you there? Because I know you're driving, but just give a quick introduction as to who you are and what you do. I'm trying to use my mobile phone today. It's so fiddly. All right, I see Carla is there, but I have to give her the opportunity. And then we have Tony. Tony Seeley, are you online? Let me see if I see you. No, I don't see you. Okay, well, let's just run. Let's just run with it. Those that are supposed to be will log in. I know, like I said, Carla is driving. So good evening, Lisa. So Shireen, seeing as you're the only one here, let me start with you. Can we give maybe an outline of maybe some of the, well, it'll be difficult to say without having an assessment. For example, if a parent contacts you, or you're referred by, a service to your organization, business, group, what would be one of the first things you look out for in a parent, and how would the assessment, because I don't know if you do assessments, but what does that look like? How does it start?
Okay, well, the first thing is when I do an assessment, I do it with the family. That's how I work differently, because I believe it's important to actually have the person's support network around them, because even with a child that has difficulties, they still have to go home and be in the same environment. So it's actually vital that the entire family is involved, or their support network, in order to actually, kind of reinforce everything that is happening. And also it helps me to identify skills that the parents need as well, because sometimes if the parents are skilled up with certain things, then they can further help the child. So usually, and one of the issues I'm finding lately, because I have a private practice as well, and what I'm finding is that CAMHS waiting list is 2 years, sometimes more in certain boroughs. And so parents are actually prepared to pay for their child to come into therapy because of that long list. I identify what their cultural needs are as well. So there are several ways in which the assessment goes. It speaks about their relationship with their parents, what their cultural needs are. There are certain elements of certain cultures that you have to work with as well, because you need to identify if there are any neurodiversity issues as well, because that will help you to organize how you're going to do therapy with them. Is it somebody with ADHD? Is it someone with dyslexia? How do they learn? So I assess their how they learn as well, the best way to actually utilize therapy. And I try to work in a very trauma-informed way, because a lot of people in our community needs trauma-informed therapy.
I 100% agree with you there. And it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because when you look at a lot of people online, everyone's, right now, people have recognized that as a community, we have a lot of trauma, and we've covered that up with religion, praying, beatings, food, drinking, sexual promiscuity. We were covering it up with all kinds of things, but not actually facing and dealing with what it is, or it's sometimes not even recognizing, because not everyone actually recognizes that there is a trauma. What you're doing is a trauma response. If you're dealing with, I know from children, okay, Tony, that's fine. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, Tony. I know you're there. I'll give you 5 minutes to just settle, and then I'll get you to come in and introduce yourself. But what I was going to say, Shireen, was with regards to, my area is the young people. Can you do assessments and or work with them? For example, a child or a family will come to you, and after speaking to them or spending time, you realize that maybe it's mum that has ADHD or autism, or ASD, or maybe it's, dad, and it's not necessarily the child. And, we always focus on the children with a lot of these conditions, but then sometimes it's not the children. The children are trying to navigate the world and also navigate their parents who are also struggling to navigate the world. What do you do in that situation, or have you come across it?
Absolutely. And that is why when I send out forms for family therapy, I actually check the parental relationships as well. So it could be their upbringing. It could be the way that they've been taught. Remember, as parents, we can only parent as good as the tools we were given. So it could be that the parents themselves don't have those skills. So I try to identify what the situation is with the parents as well. So it could be, you are so completely right. There are times, and I've seen it in my practice, where it is the parents who need the psychoeducation, who need the help to kind of signpost them to the Dyslexic Society or to get tests themselves for ADHD, because sometimes it is the parents who are not sure how to navigate around the situation. You're muted. You're muted.
I keep forgetting because I've got the aircon on. I don't mean to boast, but yeah, it makes a lot of noise. One of the parents I was dealing with I think it was the Children and Families case, actually was having her son assessed and then got herself assessed and realized that she not only was she like ADHD, ASD, and dyslexic. And she was like, do you know what? I actually kind of always felt it, but just didn't know what to do or where to go. And then the thing is with, say, for example, I direct parents to get their child assessed. The one thing we know, if a child gets an EHCP, an Educational Healthcare Plan, for those that don't know the abbreviation, or an ILP, which is an Individual Learning Plan, or anything to do with social, emotional, mental health. The problem I have, if they do get the EHCP, is that it only stays with them until they're 25. Now, we've got a situation where we have parents who have never been assessed, who've never been diagnosed with anything, who are having children who are struggling to navigate. And then what tends to happen is the children end up being taken away because they've now put themselves up with this vulnerability, and then social services jump on them and they're not really listening to when you look like we do. Whereas with other communities, they tend to get all the help and the red carpet laid out and hugs and understanding, and we don't tend to get that. Do you know what I wanted to ask? Oh, let me introduce Tony. Tony, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm really sorry for being late. Just had some issues with my son. He crooked his neck in the shower this afternoon, and we went to the A&E, got some meds. He's settling down, so he's good. He's feeling a lot better, but when it happened, it really was quite painful. But I am glad to be here. So greetings, everybody.
No, greetings. Let everyone know what you do. What do you do? Because I find your work bloody amazing, as you know.
I'm a drama practitioner, essentially, but I use the drama and all of the sort of skills and techniques that goes with that to really look at the problems that we're facing in our community. I use the creative arts essentially to work with individuals and groups and communities to look at the social problems that we're faced with every day and how we can look at solutions. And I provide a bit of training, and I like to make performances that really raise the profile of people, give them a voice, and the work for them is about what kind of change do we need to make in society in order for things to be better for us.
I understand. And even when I've had my Black Child Agenda conferences, London, Birmingham, Tony's come along, just so I'll let you guys know. And every time he's come, and at first parents are looking at him, he's like, right, come, let's go and do something. And parents are just looking at him dead face. But then he'll get the parents in and he'll actually get them. And it's fascinating because number one, they're expressing themselves. Number two, they become actors within 45 minutes to an hour. And you see the dynamic. Tony, just for what you do you see, and I see a lot of the work you're doing with regards to mental health and Black men in particular, do you see a change in a lot of the people that you've been working with regards to them being maybe withdrawn, shy, maybe not being diagnosed with anything, but being able to cope better with life, as you mentioned earlier?
I do see a change. I mean, the change is really subtle, and it's the subtle changes that are the beginnings of that journey for that individual. So, for example, whether what I've experienced, whether you're a new member coming for the first time, or you're a member that's come week in, week out, but at that particular beginning, at the beginning of the session, the check-in, so to speak, it's almost like they're kind of saying, I'm glad I make it, but I don't really want to involve myself. I just want to sit here and just soak up the vibrations of the rest of the men in the group. And that's fine. That's more than welcome. And by the end, when we do the checkout, these men are slightly kind of saying, I'm so glad I did come. I really got involved. I could feel the vibration. It's made me forget about my worries for 2.5 hours. And that means so much to me, that I've been able to just let go and be myself for a bit, because often I'm wearing this mask that I'm sick and tired of carrying, and I just want to be myself. And when I'm here, I can just be myself. So those are what I would say. It's a very small thing that this person's saying, but very, very powerful for them to notice that for themselves, to be amongst other men in this space and know that they're being held emotionally by other men, and not so much a lot of ego. And and I'm really absolutely honored to just be in the space with these men who want to come and kind of a bit shy, don't want to get involved and play, but once the spirit takes them and they get infected by it, they're laughing, they're rolling on the floor, they're just becoming children again, which they just absolutely love. So those little things I've noticed quite often.
I think that's brilliant, because I'm definitely a child at heart. I think most of the activities my children did as children was simply because there were things that I wanted to do, like going quad biking, going dry slope skiing up in Birmingham, doing clay pigeons shooting. And I know it sounds a bit like out there, but we all have that inner child. And like you said, I think that a lot of the times as adults, because we're in the humdrum, because we're in a hostile environment, because we have the bills to pay, because there's not enough money coming in, because the children are getting on our nerves, and they do, trust me, I've had 3 of them and they do get on your nerves. We forget that we have that inner child that also needs to be released and have a break, for goodness sakes, because it's been stressful. And the last couple of years with regards to the COVID and, being in lockdown, even though I was one of the ones that refused, that had an impact mentally on not only Black men, Black women, but seeing our children going back to school and having complete meltdowns. Like, there's been CCTV footage, some of the cases I've dealt with, where you're watching this child. Did the child smash the door? Yes. Did he smash up the TV? Yes. Everything you said he did. But what they do is exclude them, put them in a pupil referral unit, and say that they're a threat, they're a danger. And it's mostly Black boys. They're a threat, they're a danger. They can't stay in the school because, he kicked the teacher or he tripped the teacher over. And I'm like, well, this child is having a meltdown. Where's the social, emotional, mental health? Where's the support? Because if this was a Sally, Becky, or Timothy, he would be given the support, he would be given the love, and he would be given the care. Because that boy is the one that you end up with. That boy is the one that Shireen ends up with as a man, because nothing was done. That same boy is the one that ends up in the school to prison pipeline because no one listens and he's been failed consistently. So that's why I'm definitely, like, today, it's so important. Don't worry, everybody. Yes, please, Shireen, Anthony, and Carla, I don't know if you're online yet, let me know. by unmuting yourself. Share in the chat so that people know how to contact you after today's session, so they can get support, help, and advice. So question, it can be either yourself, Shireen, or Tony. I know, Tony, you're not a clinical practitioner, but I think through your work and experience, you may be able to actually answer some of the questions I'm going to ask. And one of the ones is with regards to not even violence, but with regards to, let's start with our young people. With regards to some of the activities we see them getting themselves involved with on our streets, we're all familiar with what's going on. How do you think a proper mental health assessment, care, attention could actually, and not necessarily going through CAMHS, because I don't like CAMHS myself, I find them very clinical and they love to give out tablets. But even for us as a community, being able to ascertain how we can work collectively through the professionals out there to basically be a fence for those young people, because we want to try and get them before they get to adulthood and think that it's okay. And one of the other things I'm going to come into after this question is self-harming. So whoever wants to answer, Tony or Shireen, what's your thoughts on that?
I first of all wanted to commend Tony, because I am actually happy to hear that that is, drama therapy is one of those things that, the inner child, I do so much inner child work, because so many of my clients, it really starts there. It really is about, them not being able to even be a child for so many different reasons. And it's amazing how these things can actually help them to just be themselves. One of the things I thought about in relation to is really to use culturally aware interventions, and drama therapy is one of them, but things like drumming, and kind of psychoeducation around assertiveness, self-esteem, self-worth. Those are the things that they don't actually deal with in schools. But on the wider issue in relation to school itself, I would say, I made some notes. I would say that they need to actually run schools in a trauma-informed way, because really they need to be sorry? Okay. They need to be appropriately trained and supported staff, teachers, nurses, counselors, and assistants, because they can achieve results through that. They can be taught culturally appropriate interventions for things like anxiety, conduct disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. There are some general interventions or small psychoeducation that, if this is actually implemented in schools, schools can actually recognize these things. And a shift needs to come from within the school culture, where well-being is also part of the priority of the school. They should be monitored on well-being stats. I think if people like the DFE, Ofsted, regional school commissioners balancing outcomes by testing school scores based on emotional well-being of students, I think that will be a great shift. I think also, a national recognition needs to be had and be given to the importance of well-being monitoring through the governing bodies, the trust boards, the directors, to put well-being as a key performance indicator in schools, rather than it being secondary.
Shireen, thank you so much for that. That's so spot on, really is. I can really hear that. Thank you again for that. I don't sure how to kind of phrase this, but I think more the sort of work I've been doing with the group members over the years, what seems to be something that the men are particularly interested in time and time again, in the context of there are already existing services out in our community. And so the work that I suppose we are doing inside our laboratory in a playful way is, how can those services suit better the Black man? How can they be more welcoming? So what we found is that often it comes under, you know, one is about there's a relationship between the professionals and the Black man, and how can they share power between them to get the best support on both sides of the fence. And so what we've come up with, and some of the things that we found constant time and time again that the men say, is that there is lack of safe spaces for them to go to and share and be open and disclose, even though they're out there, but they still feel that those spaces are not culturally appropriate for them. That's what they constantly say. The other area is around how they're viewed in terms of their identity. And obviously, you know, one of the things that we constantly tackle in the group is about that systemic barrier. And so how do we challenge the system to kind of change? So a lot of our work is around coming up with sketches that sort of a provocation that will kind of want us to show the problem, but we want the audience who are present at our performances to come up with proposals that within these proposals are new ideas about how the system services should change. And so, yeah, for me, it feels like working in that context and at that point of having the audience come up with proposals about the changes that they feel they want to see. And these audiences members are mainly friends and families and people with lived experience of having negative experiences within services. And so what we try to do is have a panel. So the forthcoming event, what we've got at the end of March, we're having the deputy mayor, deputy leader of the council, we're having the head of the director of public health, we're having, you know, SLAM people and all these other people who, from my point of view, hold somehow the purse strings to make these changes. They are the decision makers. And if we can enable the community, the audience who are there on that night, to come up with these new ideas on how these services, these existing services are in the community, can change for the better, we hope that these people on that panel, decision makers, will take these proposals away and work on them. And obviously that's a long thing, but nothing happens overnight, but that's what we're kind of working on. That's the kind of aim of our work.
Hi. If you've noticed, Tony, Shireen, I've made you guys co-hosts because my network here is terrible. So if you see me disappear, you know why. Like, it keeps kicking me off and then I come back. I'm in Africa, so it gives you an idea that the mobile phone technology, I mean, network here is appalling. So I do apologize. But you guys carry on, because I've got a couple more questions I want to ask.
I think we've pretty much, you know, finished. But I also wanted to say that for me, you know, it is not one size fits all. And as I said, you know, in relation to Tony, I think things like creatives are quite important in our community as well. You know, we use, especially 18 to 25-year-olds, use what they use in order to help their mental well-being. Sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's art. There are various ways in which you can actually help with your child's physical and mental health well-being. And the parents should get involved as well, because I think it's a family matter as well. And I think that will help to kind of engage everyone in that moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I had to sort of rank some of the sort of ways that I think the men would prefer interventions, they would say something around, number one would be individual therapy, would be on probably up there somewhere, speaking confidentiality and be with somebody who looks like them and understands them. I would say having a space where they can go to, whether that's a sports, music, cultural, art, whatever, it doesn't matter, but a space where they can feel welcomed, understood, respected, all of the things that we know. It's about having those spaces, and sometimes that's lacking in our community. And if they are around, sometimes they are on for very short periods of time. So we want something that is constant, in a way. I think I've been running this men's group for almost 2018. Yeah, 2018, I think I started running this men's group on a weekly basis. The other things that men might say is, it's about how do we improve our mental health and well-being, and they will come up with lots and lots of different ideas, whether that's through doing physical activities, whether that's more the meditation side. There's so much at our disposal from our culture that we can tap into and should tap into, whether that's on an individual one-to-one basis or you do that in a group. We need to be using our culture to heal ourselves, because all of the things that our history and culture has for us, we just need to draw upon that much more and constantly. Perhaps there's opportunities for people to come together, not only in forums like this where we can have these talks, but really, go along to these other events, retreats, weekends, one-dayers, whatever you call them, that are out there. Go along to those kinds of things. And obviously individual therapy, followed by group therapy is always useful. But these are just some of the things that I've noticed that the men would sort of rank in terms of what would be the best interventions for them and what they need.
And I agree with you, actually, Tony, because what I found, for example, I used to run a group that was mixed, and I found that the men wanted their own group, and so they felt more comfortable being in a group by themselves. Now, even, there's a male group that I started with 100 Black Men of London, and Tony's here as well. And basically, I recognized that it would be best to have a male running the group. And so I started the group as a way to kind of get the men connecting, especially mentors, because these are the people who have to mentor the children. And we don't know what they're struggling with as individuals. And so when I started that group with males, I then passed it on to a male therapist so that at least the group is enforced. And I'm about to start a female version of that now. So, there are other female groups out there as well, but it is really, we need to find groups that are culturally appropriate. And this is what I'm trying to set up, because it is important for us to have groups where we don't have to explain ourselves. There's some level of understanding about our culture and our skin color. Yes.
Do I agree with you there. Even with the explanation side of it, I'm going to keep my camera off only because my bandwidth is so poor. But can I also ask, Shireen, one of the things that keeps coming up that I've noticed amongst our girls is an issue of parents are reporting or finding out that their daughters are self-harming. And it's something that within our community is something that was completely unheard of at once upon a time. However, in the last few years, I've noticed more and more, and they're getting younger and younger. Now, if a parent may not even have any concerns because these young people hide it very well, what could be the things that maybe parents, mums, dads, aunties, uncles could look out for with regards to, it doesn't have to necessarily only be a girl, but with regards to their young people and this self-harming thing that is going on, and it is very concerning.
And I think with self-harming, people use a variety of methods to self-harm, but the common ones are slashes on their arms or their legs or their feet. And usually, if they're wearing a lot of jumpers, if the ones are on their arm, if it's summer and they're still wearing long sleeve, that's a good indication. Or if there's blood on the bed, that is also a good indication. And also, you know, usually it comes with some form of anxiety. And so, you know, what is important is that you actually speak to your child. And I know it's very scary to be a parent and have to deal with your child self-harming. And as difficult as it is, what's important is for you not to freak out. Because if you do freak out, if you do find out and you freak out, and it's good to have that conversation as well about self-harming, but if it so happens that you found out that your daughter or son is self-harming, I think one of the important things is to identify their reasons for self-harming and help them to find, the general thing is to help them to find suitable or alternative ways in which to release their stress or anxiety. So what were they feeling? You know, asking questions like, what were you feeling before it happened? I know it's hard not to focus on why did you do it, but that is not the right question to ask. What were they feeling before this happened? What thoughts were in their heads prior to it happening? And what did they feel after? And what are the thoughts they had in their mind afterwards? And then I think together, you guys can probably try to develop ways in which they can find other ways to cope with the stress or the pressure of self-harming, and also get involved with your children's, you know, classmates, as in, you know, it's good when parents talk together as well. So, you know, it's good to kind of have some sort of connection, you know, in terms of the friends, and find ways to kind of help them to be able to speak about it openly. If you don't feel you have the skills, find professional help for them to speak about it properly. Also, another way, you know, for people to kind of get out what is inside of them is journaling. I know it sounds so simple, but I recommend this both for parents and children. Journaling about your thoughts, write about your thoughts and your feelings. Remember, it's your thoughts that create the feelings, you know, and then the behavior. And I think, and we have a journaling app now. It doesn't have to be book and pen. If you feel that that is an unsafe thing to do, or you're in a situation where someone is going to read it, there are apps on the phone that you can use called My Diary. You can offer that to your child, because what is important is that they don't keep everything in and say nothing.
Shireen, when you speak there, what comes to mind for me when I hear you and that those amazing sort of solutions that you're offering there, and tips, strategies to deal with this issue, is the importance of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that it's going to be difficult, let's be honest, for you to manage and cope when your child is dealing with is experiencing those problems, and your relationship with them isn't healthy, isn't good, isn't at the moment when you need it to be the best it can possibly be to deal with that specific issue. And you know, I think at times, and sometimes as parents, we do get upset with our children, but you know, unconditionally, we know that, you know, we're going to love them no matter what. But from what I've heard some of the men say, because of all kinds of issues in the past, they don't have these strong relationships with their children. And so what I can foresee and hear in some of the stories is that they haven't been able to do these things because of they haven't had that relationship. And that is the key thing, isn't it? Because when we got that strong relationship with our child, there's lots of opportunities ahead of us in that kind of landscape that we could try, because together, as you say, we can go down different paths to see what might work, what might fit, what might be the best thing. But when the relationship is strained and difficult and awkward, it makes the whole thing even difficult, more harder.
Absolutely. And that is exactly why when I have, children come into, my practice, it is important to engage the parents and their relationship with their parents, because, we have to be honest, not all parental and child's relationship, especially around teenage years, is going to be one that is not necessarily healthy or productive or, the way we would like it to be. But what is important is that you still try to foster something. And you can do that by actually being in front of a therapist and talking about what the issues are as a family, and see how you can deal with that and learn different techniques to foster good relationships with your children. Sometimes it's, this tradition that we had culturally where you have Sunday dinners together, sometimes it just takes even that, and a forum for your child to feel it's okay for them to speak. Even if you say, okay, just one day a week, you can say whatever you want to say, not disrespectfully, but express what you'd like without being punished for that one particular hour in the week, maybe after dinner, where they feel they can speak freely to you, because there needs to be a space provided for your child to be able to express what they're feeling.
Absolutely.
Can I also add to that? Because what you're describing, particularly with our children, since they've come back after Christmas and even just September, I'm getting a lot of year 7s. For all you parents out there with year 7 children they're babies, they've literally just left primary school, they've just come into secondary school. And one of the things I find interesting is that a lot of schools claim to have a transition program. They don't. They don't have a year 6, 7 transition program for the child. Now, if you have a child that already has some underlying needs and you've thrown them into this huge environment where they've gone from maybe 300 to 500 children, to now 1,250 children, some of them are 6 foot towering over them, loud noise, running up and down and all these things. And you have a child that may be suffering with anxiety, maybe because of the environment, ASD or autism, again, that may or may not have been diagnosed while they're in school, while they were in primary school, or maybe it wasn't diagnosed, but they had things in place to support the child, and those things haven't followed through with the secondary school. That also can lead to your child wanting to, or self-harming. That also can lead to your child being on the road, because if you're not listening as a parent, or you're not recognizing what may be going on, it may be easier for them to talk to somebody else who may not be the right example for them. You also have, one of the things I get a lot of as well, particularly on my Instagram, which is like, I check that every so often, but then forget to respond, which is why we say to people to email us. And that is a lot of anxiety and bullying. And we feel that the bullying tends to be coming from other children, but a lot of the time it's actually coming from the adults who are entrusted to look after your child. And I've had cases where children have gone to school, and the second they set foot in that school, they're put in isolation, and they stay in isolation from 8:30 in the morning until 4:20 or 5 o'clock or whatever time it is in the evening, all day, every day. And parents aren't being made aware. Sometimes the children tell their parents, sometimes they don't, because they're so used to being cast to one side that they just think it's normal behavior. So things like this, I know many, many parents say, oh, they ask their children about their day. But sometimes asking your child about their day could be simple as, who did you play with today? Have you made any new friends today? Who was your teacher today? How do you find that teacher? How do you find this person? Do they have a 2-parent household? Do they have a 1-parent household? What does their mum look like? What does their dad look like? What do they do for, just asking all the questions that may not be direct, because then you find, I did it with my boys. They told me, and they still now today, they're in their big adult age. They still come and tell me everything as their mama, to ask my advice and opinion, because instead of making it an interrogation, we made it into a conversation. As you said, Shireen, Saturday mornings, after they've done football, this, that, and the other, or tidied up and wiped down the skirting board, I want to know what's going on. Or we'd go to dinner. We would go and eat our favorite food and we'll sit down and we'll have that discussion, or we'd go for a drive. You know, there's a lot of things we can do where it may not, you know, some parents' money might be a problem. Go to the park, run up and down with them, ramp with your children, play with some football. All of these help with your own anxiety as well. Remember, we're allowed to laugh, you know, because the one thing I find is that we're so conscious these days. We're so pro-Black and repeating what Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and every other scholar and everybody else that came before us, we're so hell-bent on that we're missing our children growing up. We're missing having conversations and fun with them, so that when we do get old, rather than being put in an old people's home, they're going to want to move you in with them. But we have to remember to have fun with our kids. We have to remember to laugh with them. We have to remember to converse with them. We need to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mum, Dad, you know what I did? I smoked a spliff today for the first time. Right then, okay. Because you know it's going to come at some point. There's no point, right, get out my house. There's no point with all of that. Because them smoking a spliff, them trying a cigarette, them drinking alcohol, you know, we live in the West where all of those things are there. And they may choose to try it. I'm not saying that all of them will. They may choose to try it. How they try it and how they manage it then thereafter is down to the relationship that they have with you and the stigma that's attached to it that they have with you. Shireen, I can see your brain going. Go on, what did you want to say?
No, I just want to say 2 really good questions to ask your child when they come home from school is, what was the best thing that happened to you today? And what was the worst thing that happened to you today? Those are 2 open questions, and those are questions that will foster conversations.
Absolutely.
And I just saw your message, Natalie, I think it was, that just popped up because the messages are going so fast. And what you've just described is very, very, very common, unfortunately, for our children. Our children are a lot like, do you know children with special educational needs, which is a label I don't like using, but it is the one that is recognized, are the highest proportion of children to be permanently excluded from school. You know, they talk about Romany Gypsy, culturally Romany Gypsies, and I think it's Gypsy Traveller, their exclusion rates are high, but by the time them girls get to 16, they're married anyway. They leave school by 14 and maybe the boys stay on. So they're culturally slightly different to us. But when you look at the data and statistics of permanent exclusions of Black boys and Black girls, the schools to prison pipeline in full effect, is children with special educational needs. They end up in pupil referral units, which are a dumping waste ground where they're not going to get an A star in their maths, which they're on track to do. They're not going to get an A or even a B in English. There's some of those pupil referral units, the maximum grade they'll get is a D or a C if they're lucky, despite their academic capabilities. We know that they are grooming grounds for violence and drugs and gang activity and things like that. And if you have a child who has autism or ASD, there you have the schools to prison pipeline just right in front of you. And 72% of male people in the prison systems, particularly our young Black males, have had a mental health or a neurological disorder that was never picked up, or it was picked up but never addressed and dealt with whilst they were in school. And these are the things I constantly go on about with regards to parents. And then, Shireen, with regards to parents, you know, you say that people come, yeah, I know, Tony, young, you know, you assess the whole family. How do people get to your services? Is it where they have to be referred? Or do you promote and advertise on social media and places like that so people can find you? Do you do free consultations? Is there a fee? If so, what does that look like? Let us know, because, you know, a lot of things people are like, oh yeah, it needs to be free. It does, but until we're funding ourselves, yeah, there's bills to be paid, unfortunately, sorry.
Well, at the moment, I have SAB Counselling Services, which is not a free service, but I do give concessions to families and clients on low income. I'm currently developing SAB Black Therapy Network, which we're trying to get funding to assist the community and actually to provide specialist services. And the idea in that service area is that we have a number of Black therapists from different cultural backgrounds that people can access. And so that is in the process of being built. But for the moment, and I've put the website address for the moment, it is SAB Counselling Services. But as I said, I do concessions. And there are some families on the books who actually get a community concession, depending on their circumstances. Some of those has been sent to me from other service areas. And I've said, you know what, I will work with them because, you know, it just doesn't feel right to see, especially, you know, the people who are falling through the net more than any other children right now is the 18 to 25-year-olds, because they've even if they were with CAMS before, they're kicked off and they're not, you know, moved on. And then some of them, if they're going to university, that creates another added stress. And their mental health really kind of collapses. And so, you know, I have, you know, families who, for example, there's psychosis involved, you know, with their teenage son, you know, that I'm working with as well. And so, you know, once again, there isn't much facilities in terms of the service area. They really have to push to get services done. And one of the things that I do, which I kind of go above as a therapist, which is, you know, if they need extra support in different areas, I try to signpost them to other areas while they're in therapy as well. But yes, once again, I speak to the entire family, because if you're caring for someone who has a mental health condition, your own mental health suffers. And so you need somebody to talk to too. It's not only about the child.
I 100% agree with you, and like the fact that is something that is needed, because it's too often we see our young men and women having to go to a counsellor who's probably from Ukraine, looking at them with distaste, disdain, and they have no idea, they have no understanding, they don't actually need to have an understanding, they don't care, and it is a tick box exercise. And the thing is, it's not as though mental health hasn't been on the radar with regards to, they were only focusing on Black men at one point. Black men's mental health is it was once upon a time, I remember back in the 90s, 8 times more likely for Black men to suffer with mental health than anybody else. And my question has always been, so what are you doing about it? Because there's not been any money ring-fenced. There's not been any specialist services set up within our communities or where they're funding our communities. There's not been anything, and we're still, I feel, in a similar position as we were years ago, even though we have more qualified psychotherapists, counselors, psychiatrists, like the list is endless. But yet when it comes to actually dealing with our communities, the funding seems to disappear when it comes to actually making sure that a bespoke service that we need, a culturally appropriate service is the right thing to say, that we need is never on the table. So I definitely believe that what you're doing, Shireen, makes so much sense. What you're doing, Tony, is absolutely, you know, amazing as well. And the fact that one of the areas that I wanted to get into was theatre and drama and filmmaking and production. And the reason being is because you realize how important it is for all of the family to be involved in being able to express themselves, whereas once upon a time, if you wanted to express yourself, you were beaten or you were clapped over the head. So please, Tony and Shireen, keep posting your website and contact details in the chat so that people know how to find you. One last question I have for you guys. With regards to, and Shireen, this is probably maybe even more down to you again. I hope you get a glass of water. But I don't know what's happened to Carlette.
Sorry.
But really, I was going to say with regards to whoever that is, could you please mute your microphone?
No.
Sorry, could you mute your mic for a moment? Because I'm just finishing off with Shireen.
Yeah, well, someone wanted to make a point.
Okay, they can make a point after I've finished with my guests who have been invited on to speak for a reason, and then we're going to take questions. The meeting is until 8:30.
I don't think it was a question.
Okay, but even regardless of that, we have a way of how we do this, and it's not where people can just jump in as and when they feel like it. As I said, that any people will be able to make their points after we finish speaking to those who have been invited on to speak. So Cherie, what I was going to actually ask you was with regards to not only the family support for parents, one of the other areas where people keep thinking with regards to sexual health is drug abuse and the sexual promiscuity that we're finding our young girls and boys getting involved in. How would you suggest a parent also tackles that, and who, what, when, where can they go to for that support within our community and or even outside of?
Okay, once again, sexual health comes from actually having the conversations early in terms of your child being, aware of the situation. But even when it comes, what I found in my practice, for example, is that there are a large proportion of young girls, unfortunately, who experience rape or molestation. In terms of even during university, for example. One of the things is that you need to have these discussions with your children. There is a rape crisis center that actually does give some psychoeducation on sexual health, but also it is important for your child for you to kind of be instrumental in taking your child to access certain psychoeducational services in terms of sexual health. I will post some in the chat so that you guys can know actually where to turn to. But it's one of those things that requires discussion from the parents more than anything else. But obviously they will learn things from their peers as well. And so if you don't have the conversation with them, they're going to have it with their peers. And usually their peers are not, they don't have the capacity to tell them that this is the situation. Another thing that needs to be taught to the children are boundaries. What are their personal boundaries? Remember also that boundaries in terms of sexual health or sexual promiscuity sometimes go with boundaries in the home as well. If your child feels violated in the home, and it could be through beatings, through cursings, through telling them all sorts of things about themselves. Remember, your child's boundary is also in a place where they're not able to understand what boundaries is. And so be very cautious in the way that you kind of discipline your child and the things you say to your child to make them feel as though they have and have issues like self-esteem, self-worth. They need to know that they can come to you and trust you when they start having sex as well. Because if you are not having a conversation with them and they feel, you know what, my mom is going to tell me off if I'm having sex, then they're not going to come to you. You have to create a forum that your child can actually have these conversations with you, because with or without you, they may do it, but at least they will do it with someone else, who they feel that they can talk to. Or if you are not comfortable with it, get another relative or someone in their social network who you feel is more equipped to talk to them about it.
And again, the point there, Shireen, I think, again, is about, trying to do the best we can as parents to have that really strong, open, relaxed, firm relationship with our children so that they feel that they can come and talk to us about these issues. In relationship is absolutely key. And I just wanted to just go back just a little bit back to the earlier discussion that we had around not enough services. And it feels to me that what we've explored in our workshops with the men around, there's not enough money really being put into the services. Every year, the budgets are cut, and yes, there's a sense that we've got to kind of do for self, and I get all of that, but there are the services that are meant to be out there that's being provided for us, and those services need to be changed because they're just not working. They're broken and not fixed and not fit for purpose half the time. And so one of the things that we try to do, I suppose, is to challenge our local MPs, get them to come along to the performances that we are making and get them to realize that this community here today wants to make some changes and come up with those proposals on how those services should be changed, because we know that local authorities don't have the money. They keep lowering budgets. They keep telling you all kinds of excuses. They should tax the rich more, you know, and make sure it's ring fence for services. But the whole corruption side of it is just massive for me to even fathom and work out where that actually money is going to. But it's not going to us, and it's not going to the people that really need it. So you can see why things are overstretched and underserviced. It's just not, there isn't that money to provide that service. And yet still, yes, we need to do for self. At the same time, we need to be spinning both of those sides to really provide something for our community, because we definitely do. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that money side of it, because it just feels really important.
It's very important. Colette, you deal with adult mental health.
Yeah, I deal with adult mental health, but I've gone back into young people now with mental health over the past 6 weeks. But I think my implement for this is also that, obviously, as a mental health practitioner, Cheryl, you know that I've had the difficulties for the past 14 years with my own son, and also been having to, you know, navigate as a mental health practitioner and know how it does affect you. And then also being a Black mother and having to navigate for my child within the education system over those years, and then be open enough to say that you've affected my mental well-being as well. And just sitting around the table with you affects me, you know, over the years. And I think, you know, it's very important that we speak out openly about how, you know, the treatment that we do have within schools and educations, and when services are not applicable for us or tailored for us, we're not getting the best out of services to benefit us, you know, long term, or even to benefit our young people or our children. Very important. At the moment, I'm working in a Tier 4 service where we take young people that have been sectioned, and when they're ready to transition into assisted living care. And again, you know, mental health, it's just, you know, not to mention a service user, but we have a Black service user that just will not at all speak with anyone that's white. And again, she won't access any service. She's not born in this country, but she will not access any services, due to reach 18 very soon. Obviously, she doesn't have her immigration stuff either. And it's like she's pushing herself more into the mental health system just to be protected, but not even seeing the detriment of that. And just because we don't have enough specialists and people that they're accessing of Afro-Caribbean descent, you know, our young people are going to turn around and end up in the adult mental health system and fall right through the net, because rightfully what Shireen said, there's that big gap between 18 to 25-year-old. And then when a young person reaches 17 and a half, social services and everyone is trying their hardest now to transition them into adult services. And really, when they get to adult services, they are going to slip through the net. The services are going to be too harsh. They're not going to be kind of set to support them with that transition from a child to an adult. So yeah, our children are going to get lost in that net, and it definitely has to be something that is there. And I think we have to definitely look at having our own services, our own assisted care living and things like that. And, you know, especially even an assessment from a cultural perspective as well would be amazing, and where we're taking into cultural stuff. Because me personally, I make sure that I'm forever talking about it. But then, you know, the last meeting I went with my son, I was told to be that I'm angry, I'm aggressive. Oh, you're aggressive and things like that. And rightfully so, I'm upset. It's been 14 years I have to sit around the table with you guys for, and I don't want to. Really, if I was honest, I wouldn't even want my son to be in your education system or anything. But you know, my son's 17, he wants to go to college, he wants to, you know, be like any other normal child and, you know, interact and socialize with friends. So sometimes I have to allow him to also get that. But again, if it was down to me, I would never go in it. But thank you for giving us this space as well, Cheryl, for us to have this conversation. I think it's a conversation that we need to continue to have, and continue to even be that specialist where we can go out there and educate those services and get in there and tell them straight that we don't, you know, just be straightforward and honest that your services does not meet our needs, full stop, period. You get money every year, every 3 years for us. It does not fit our needs. We need the money so we can set a service that fits our needs. And if we have a cultural specific assessment, then we're in for something with that. But I think until we get that kind of assessment, hopefully Shireen could help us with that. But until we get that kind of assessment, you know, it's very difficult because you have so many people that says, no, it's not that. Yes, it is this, you know. But yeah, that's just my 2 pence into there.
No, I was going to say, tell people what you actually, who you are and what you actually do.
Okay,
From
so
your adult mental health side and obviously now into the children.
Okay, so I'm a senior assessment coordinator with IAP service. So I assess people with complex mental health, anything from things like schizophrenia, bipolar, to depression, anxiety, no mood. I'm also have a charity called Grassroots Education Academy for Transformation, which was set up because of the difficulties that I was going through with my son. And at that point, it was the fact that the only person that helped me was Cheryl Phoenix from London, and I'm from Manchester. And I had to contact her and say, well, this is what I'm going through. And from that, I set up the charity. And we have GREAT, which is a parent forum, which is for Afro-Caribbean parents, which is a safe circle for us to be able to talk about the issues that we face with our family, because it was identified that we don't feel comfortable going into, you know, white settings and talking about our issues, because the first thing would happen, probably the police and social services would be at our door, banging on the door for some things that are just cultural specific and or something that we do within our families. The other side is that I do a lot of community work, and now obviously I'm doing the tier 4 transitions with young people from mental health services. And I've always worked in mental health because my auntie had mental health and was in Broadmoor from a young age, and that was my passion for mental health. So that's a bit of my background. Yeah, and I'm a mother.
No, that's cool. Thank you. So I understand some people either wanted to ask a question or make a statement. Please keep it short. Because I know there's a lot of people that have been asking questions. I haven't been able to keep up with all of them. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand so that we can see, and then literally go from there. I'm gonna have to scroll through. If you have a question for Shireen or for Tony or for Carlette, please raise your hand so that we can see. Oh, look, see, so nobody wants to ask questions after disturbing the thing. Nobody have nothing to say. Let me see, 17 chats. Let me have a look. There was somebody that asked.
Maybe you should let people speak at the time then.
No, not really. But is it you that had something to say, or was it? There was a lady called Joyce, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lady called Jocelyn. That's correct. Yeah, and you didn't let her speak. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to come in. Yeah, sorry about that. I will wait so patiently. I'm so thankful to be invited to this meeting, Cheryl. Thank you so much. And the contributions by Shireen and others. I'm actually within the 18 to 25 category. So it's actually my first time attending a meeting like this. And there were a lot of good points highlighted within the meeting about talking about the issue of mentorship and the lack of role models within our community in certain systems. I'm currently at university. So where I'm speaking now, I'm actually in my dormitory. And there is a lot of issues in terms of lack of counselors, like lack of Black counselors for our students, and actually the lack of influence and guidance that we have as well. So yeah, it is a pervasive problem even within the university superstructures.
Thank you. What would you say would be, aside from the counsellors, what other support do you think could be put in place to support young people that find themselves in a similar position to yourself?
I think one of the biggest issues that we have here is the complaints and procedures processes. I go to Portsmouth University, by the way. So I do go to a predominantly white university. It's about 88% white in Portsmouth. So there's a lot of Black people on the campus, but in terms of the representation and the student unions, it's a problem. And I go to the student unions fairly a bit. So there isn't a lot of representation. And I think there's also a lot of tokenism representation as well. So when you do talk to people about issues that you're experiencing on campus, whether it's racism in the dormitories, in the classroom context, they don't really take it very seriously. And it's a very pervasive problem on campus. And I think they have put racism as a back burner issue in contrast to other issues that they're prioritizing on the campus setting.
Can I ask what would happen, or what you imagine or speculate that what would happen if those people who really felt passionate about this problem on campus came out and started just, you know, holding up placards, this is what we want, this is what we want, and we want it now. And they kind of raised that in front of the student union, in front of the head and all of those people. Would they take people seriously, and would that be the beginnings of change?
I think that's a very good question. I do think they would take us seriously, but I think the problem is with young Black people, particularly my age group, is that we're not very organized. I think, like, for example, we have a meeting like this now that greatly exemplifies our strength as a community. But I have tried with my own community of people my age to organize them and talk about this issue collectively, that let's do something about it. Don't always wait on the student union to do something about it. Let's actually do meetings, Zoom meetings, do meet sessions. I've tried, and it's very difficult, especially when you have other obligations such as your work to attend to, because I'm a sociology student. So I'm always busy all the time, but I'm trying to also fit in certain things that attend to the needs of our community. It's very hard because to organize these things and to do these things is also about the commitment of the collective community to disintegrate these issues. And there are Black student unions, but they're small comparison to here, yeah.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Was that all that you had to say? Sorry, I want to make sure.
I was gonna add one more bit to his question. I think it's because we're not, like I said, we're not organized with certain things. This is the problem, because they do take us seriously, but the processes are very slow, and they've put more overemphasis about the grades that we're getting at school as opposed to our mental health and other factors that actually contribute to our poor attainment at school. Because, for example, Black students were less likely to get 2-1s or first classes at university. And I'm always working so hard to try and get a first class or a 2-1 here, but it's not easy. You know, there are other issues.
Sounds about right. I remember when my son went to university and my sister, it was a similar thing. All right, let's move on, because I want to make sure everyone gets to say their bit. There is Akua E. Bailey.
Oh, hi. Greetings, everyone. I just wanted to just make a comment, actually. I agree with everything that's been said, and I think that it's really important that we have this this platform to discuss, like, time and time and time again, just so that the penny drops with parents and we can kind of collaborate. I am a trainee psychotherapist. I'm actually in Africa at the moment, but I've only been here just over a year. And I just wanted to say that on the training, I did a lot of, before I did my psychotherapy training, I did other training in a particular establishment. And because of the cost of the training, etc., it's very difficult for Black people to access the training in certain establishments. There was only 2 Black people, myself and another one, on the particular, and we went through hell and high water. Because of COVID, I just escaped, and I'm now in Ghana at the moment. But I still have connections with them. But one of the things I wanted the main things I wanted to say, there is a school in Blackheath where I did a lot of my placement for over about at least 5 years, I'd say 5 to 7 years. And the therapy service that's offered there is offered to children, to the teachers, to parents. And one of the good things about offering it to the children, sometimes they self-refer. So it then means that they get a taste of what therapy is like. It doesn't become that much of a taboo to them. So when they get older, it's something that they feel easier to actually access. And the last point is, I also worked in Lewisham in 3 GP surgeries for about 9 years, and I was assigned to the under 25s. And what I realized there is the resident therapist in this, one of the large surgeries, she just didn't feel confident and equipped to deal with young people. So I got most of the referrals for the young people. So you would get some surgeries that identify where their weakness lies or their inability. And then, because, at one point people were saying, how comes you're getting a certain caliber of referrals? And I was fine with that because young people was my niche. But I think it's about identifying where the strengths and the weaknesses are. And I just wanted to add that there, because I don't want it to seem like, there is not enough being done. Don't get me wrong, there's not enough being done at all, but it is filtering out. Our young people are being exposed to the idea of having therapy. And I'm just hoping and praying and trusting that it will actually continue. So I just wanted to add that. And then obviously I'm not familiar with Shireen, but I am familiar with Tony and the work that he does. I was actually on one of his sessions like many moons ago. So that it's very, very effective. And I just want to congratulate everybody that tries to move this kind of forward. And thank you again for the platform. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Hold on, I've got you guys in a queue. Susan, you're next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It was kind of a recap really on some of the things. Thank you for this evening. I actually kind of fell into this accidentally and I'm glad I did. 2 things. I know we touched on things and I think it was Shireen, if I've got it wrong, don't hold it against me, that touched on this idea about our children and their sexuality and the pressure that this is kind of bringing to bear. Both as a parent and as somebody who works in different levels of education. So I work with kids, I teach teachers, I work in colleges. So I'm seeing sort of different stages of education all the way through. And what I'm finding is that regardless, I'm an Outer London resident as well, which is quite interesting for the racial dynamic. But what I'm realizing is that schools kind of bring in things almost for face value or a novelty. So we talk about race, we talk about sexuality, we talk about sexual orientation. But the second it becomes a problem, i.e. the children start wanting to discuss it, they're not equipped. And they seem to have nowhere to plug children into. One of the reasons I was fascinated with this was because you brought it up as Black people. I live in Kent. So it's a predominantly white school area or college, for our children growing up, and they have very little support. And what I've been trying to do in the last year is saying actually alumni, I know the young lady from the university brought this up, they don't get support. Perhaps tap into their alumni. That's what I did with some of my older ones, to say, please, can you help mentor us? How did you get through it? Yeah, because if the people on the ground in the here and now aren't helping, perhaps some of those people, I'm not saying all of them will take it up, it could, because it's a thing you're doing voluntarily, but there are people you can look into to get support elsewhere, and that's possibly a source. That's what I did in my children's school. I actually got the alumni to come back and mentor some of the young people because of this problem, trying to help them navigate through.
Brilliant. Thank you, Susan. That's very useful. And then wait, let me go back in. Nat.
Yeah, hello, good evening, everyone. I want to go back to, I don't know if Shireen is still here. So I just want to, Shireen mentions that there needs to be trauma work done in schools. And I'm actually quite interested in this as well, being a parent of a child that has got special needs and having to take my child out. Because, they've got all these policies in place that's against these children. It doesn't help them. It just removes the child from the situation, and then there's no help for these children. So that's what I'm interested in. And is anyone else here in this meeting prepared to do that work as parents? Because unless you take action into your own hands, nothing gets done. Your child just gets penalized for having something that's not in their control. So that's what I just want to know. Has anyone experienced doing any type of work as parents? Because as a parent, you have to get that knowledge. I've been on parenting courses specifically for my child's special needs, and we're the ones that are dealing with this at home day in, day out. And the schools of this world, they can't handle situations, so they remove your child from the school. And it just seems like this cycle is never going to end unless they do accept that there is trauma work that needs to be done for some of the traumas that the school are placing on your children by giving out these exclusions and, thinking to sending them home, whether it be fixed term, permanent, internal exclusions, putting them in different classrooms. It just compounds the problem. So that's what I just want to know. Are people prepared to do as parents and say, well, this is what needs to be, our children, their needs. It's like the school is saying, this isn't our problem because we can't handle this. We're not equipped to do it. The specialist schools are not equipped either. So where do we go now? Because they can't keep damaging the children further.
Nat, I'm sorry that you're going through this, but it's like, as you're speaking, I'm just literally gritting my teeth. Let me tell you something, yeah? Susan's saying, have you thought about homeschooling?
I know, I do. I've given up on the school, but I'm hearing the parents say the same things over and over again.
100%.
My child doesn't go to school.
Why they get away with it? Because parents don't know. If your child has a neurological need, ASD, ADHD, whatever it is, and have no control over the way how they're behaving in school. The only way how a school can say to you that they cannot manage their behavior, that's fine. They have to have a meeting with you and discuss that. They have to also prove to you with a long list of things of what they've put in place to support your child. If your child has an educational healthcare plan, have they followed the educational healthcare plan? Who is their one-to-one support worker? Is their one-to-one support worker qualified to actually deal with your child and their needs? I want to see their certificate. Okay, you're entitled to ask for that. Where is my child's money being spent? I want to know where, and I want to see the outcomes. Who is working with my child as the so-called mentor? Because they love this word mentor, thinking that they can just throw any other student or any random that they've taken off the streets to come and work with your child. Is that person qualified? How often are they working with my child? How many days a week? For how long? What outcomes are you expecting from my child over what period of time? Can I have a report to show that? Schools have to be held accountable. And what it is, because they rely on the fact that parents don't know the process, they get away with sending your child home. If they send your child home, that is an unlawful exclusion. They're not allowed to do that. If they're sending your child home with a fixed term exclusion or an internal exclusion, they need to break down in a letter the reasons why. Okay, and even with that, you can challenge it. A lot of schools do that because they, like you've said, they can't be bothered to deal with your child. Special schools, don't get me started, they're not really worth the paper they're written on. Most children actually do worse in special schools than in mainstream settings. However, you have a lot of mainstream schools who also have a specialist area within there. Pupil referral units are being used more and more to have children assessed. So if your child hasn't had an assessment yet or doesn't have an EHC plan, they're using the pupil referral units or alternative provisions. However, your child EHC plan is a legally binding document. If they are not following the EHC plan, then you go through the complaints procedure. And I know it's tedious, I know it's long, and I know it's frustrating. However, what I encourage parents to do, because I think about your child's mental health and well-being first, take your child out whilst you're going through that procedure. Write a letter to the safeguarding team within the local authority and also those that are managing the EHC and the spending of the EHC, to let them know what the hell's going on. I complained at this date at this time. I sent a letter to the school. I sent a letter to the parent, to the governors. No one's actually acting on it. No one's responding. The EHC plan is not being followed. They will have to come down on them like a ton of bricks. Then you go to tier 1 and tier 2 tribunal. If that's still going on, then you go to the high courts of disability discrimination, and you drag those teachers and the school through it. Another option is also having the school be in JR, judicially reviewed. That comes at a cost from anywhere from £800 upward, because it is a legal challenge and it does look at the whole school. You also utilise Ofsted, your local MP. Even though I know MPs are not necessarily with academy schools, they don't really have much jurisdiction. However, all schools, academy and otherwise, have to follow, except for private schools where you sign a contract, have to follow government guidelines, and the government guidelines are clear. One thing I encourage parents to do is make sure you download all the school's policies and make sure that they're following those policies. If they're not following their own policies, that's another thing to get them on. I always put the schools up first. I'm always, whatever the child, I don't care if this child burnt down the whole building. I don't care what the child has done, because at the end of the day, I'm leaving my baby in your care for 30 hours a week. So what the hell are you doing with him or her? Why he's behaving like that? Why was my son able to break the laptop? Why was my son able to break out of the school and run around the playground because he couldn't cope? What coping mechanisms have you put in place for my son? Is this working? Is that working? Why isn't it working? Where's my report? I want a report every week to know what's going on with my child, how you're following his EHC plan, and making sure that his mental health and well-being is being looked after properly whilst he's in your care. Because if he's in your care and these things aren't being taken care of, somebody's going to have to answer to me, and somebody's going to be having to come to court. And then even if you don't go to disability discrimination, which is in the high courts, you can actually take out a private lawsuit. Maximum compensation payout will be anywhere between £5,000 and £10,000. But all of it can be done, and you have to hold them to account. Because at the end of the day, if you're putting them in the belly of the beast, and these are babies, they're children, I don't care if they're 8 or 18, you're still, for me, they're babies. So at the end of the day, you need to answer to why you're not looking after my child. Because if it wasn't me, if it's me that did it, you'll be calling social services. So I want the same love, care, and attention that I give my child. You need to do that. And if you're not doing it, then you're going to come up against the wrath of his mama and him papa. And that is that. I hope that was clear and I didn't speak too fast.
No, that was crystal clear. But yeah, all parents need to do that. One of
the things we do, and because of what you're saying and because of my inbox, I'm going to be doing a training session for parents on how to navigate the education system, how you can hold them to account, how you utilize the law, what you need to read, because there's a lot of information out there around education law. I've been doing this for 12 years, so I have mastered it. I can reel off statuses and quotes and everything from most of the contracts, most of the educational healthcare plans, whatever it is that needs to be done. So unfortunately, I have to rewrite it because my last laptop was broken by somebody. So I'm going to have to rewrite the training course, and then parents are more than welcome to come on that. So you understand at least how to get to the high courts if necessary. It will be a blow-by-blow account of how you get to the high court if necessary, how you challenge the school before you even get to that point, how you make sure the school, and just so you know, I've got a child who's doing horse riding on his educational healthcare plan, who has a part-time timetable on his educational healthcare plan, who's also doing hot yoga on his educational healthcare plan, is also going to counselling twice a week, culturally appropriate and specific counselling on his educational healthcare plan. He does a lot of different things based under his educational healthcare plan, which most schools and local authorities will say no. I say to all of them, give me 2 weeks and this child will have a part-time timetable, and everything that makes him feel good about himself, everything that makes him feel calm and relaxed is what it is, because we're talking about this young Black child's mental health and well-being. And if you don't give it to me, then we need to look at a safeguarding concern by the school and the local authority. And who wants to spend their time having to go to court to take on the Black child agenda? Not very many people. So they have to do as they're told.
Wow. So that you put that under safeguarding then, if they
100%, because you're dealing with a child's mental health, and that's a safeguarding concern. If my child's going to your environment on a daily basis and being hit over the head or being bullied or not being given the right care, then it's a definite concern. An absolute definite concern. So it needs to be raised. And I instructed a parent only 3 weeks ago to contact the safeguarding team in the local authority and also the EHC, those that conduct and write the EHC plans, and the school and Ofsted aren't worth the paper they're written on, but as a matter of course, their local MP, everyone who makes a decision about education was CC'd in on that email. And they went from smiling to frowning to making sure that everything was put in place. They found £50,000 worth of funding for 2 children. How so quick? After 3 weeks? That's impossible. But it was there, because what they do is take the money that is for your child's EHC and give it to somebody else or spend it somewhere else. But we don't tolerate that. But it's only because parents don't know the questions to ask or the policies and guidelines that need to be followed. That's the only reason why schools get away with it. And that's the only reason why more and more of you are pulling your kids out. Me, I'm a home ed advocate. I would prefer, if I could do it all over again, I'd home educate my children too. But think about and consider a part-time timetable if your children are suffering with socializing. That's something worthwhile thinking of. But just hearing you speak has frustrated the hell out of me. So I had to wade in just so that you know. But sorry, Nat, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Thank you. That's helpful for other parents too.
No, good. I'm glad. Let me just see if there's any more hands up. And yeah, no, Susan, we've spoken to you. Jocelyn, we've spoken to you. What I was going to say as well, for all of my panel, do you, and even the guests, maybe by show of hands, or how Andrew Muhammad says, do a 1 or do a lick fire service. But do you think it's worthwhile having more meetings like this, which I know is a yes to that question, and having more meetings like this, maybe once every other month? I can't commit to every month. And then maybe at some time, May, June, I might be back in the UK then, try and tap into those that make the key decisions about the spending and where the budgets go for mental health, and inviting them to one of our meetings so that we can actually, by then we could have actually decided what exactly we want, how we want it, what it looks like, why we want it, and the fact that Carlette said that your services don't work. Educational healthcare plan, your services don't work, so we need you to show us how you're going to be held accountable to make sure that we get the funding and resources, so we don't have to keep scratching around and relying on our community. So we don't have to fill out ridiculously long funding applications that are not really applicable to us, having to jump through 10,000 hoops. Let me know, what's your thoughts on that? Did it make sense? Basically getting those that make the decisions on the spending for mental health services within the UK around into one of these meetings to answer questions and let them see that as a community, they need to answer to us properly. Because I've seen surveys being done, but I haven't seen what's happened then thereafter, to be fair. And that's not anyone that's done a survey. I'm just being honest. I don't see a change. So maybe we should have them in a meeting and talk to them directly and put them under some serious pressure. We have to make sure they don't pass out though or faint. So make sure there's plenty of water. What do you guys think?
I think that's a banging idea to get them involved. I mean, we do need to be constantly trying to talk and form alliances, however healthy or toxic they will end up being, of my experience. But we do need to align ourselves with the people in our community, particularly those MPs and councillors, because those are the ones who are in the positions to at least, lobby and, speak on your behalf, and then maybe other stakeholders. And just as a kind of an example of what we're trying to do at the forthcoming show for the Black Men's Consortium is that we have this very simple analogy. It's watch, act, and think, and then vote. Watch, act, vote, which essentially means you watch the play with the problems in it. You then act out what you think are the solutions to these problems that exist in our community. And then you vote on the best proposals that come from the community, and those proposals, ideas are taken to the panel of decision makers, which is the Deputy Council and Leader of Public Health and all of those other stakeholders and all those people, health professionals who are part of the service, to make some change. That's what we're doing. Whether it's going to work because it's a long thing, that's what we are doing on our project. If you want to see an example of that, please come down to Brixton Library on the 30th and the 31st of March to see how that might work in action. I'm going to put the link in the chat.
Hello, good evening. Sorry, I've been having my hand up for quite a while. Is it possible to, is it okay?
My apologies, I didn't see it. Sorry.
Yeah, my battery died twice in waiting. Thank you for having this forum here at the moment. What I wanted to say this is just my view. We need to take responsibility. Yeah, obviously there's enough professionals of our colour to be able to take responsibility for our own children and our own community. The system is not geared at all, never has been, never will be for our children. So when you say that comment, putting the children in the beast of the belly or whatever it is, why do we still want something from a system that is gauged against us? I see the Muslim, the Jewish, the white, all have their own schooling system that they put their own children in, and their children don't have to suffer in another sort of environment that's not suited to them. I've seen supplementary Saturday schools for Black boys. I had another new one opened up for girls at somewhere in Wilson, City Academy. You know, I've done homeschooling with my children. Yeah, and my children are in university and college and self-employed. So I had to take responsibility for my children's education. I had to build their self-esteem. I had to get their mental well-being as well. Whilst I was at school, especially having Black boys, you have to make sure that the system, what is gauged against them, and I've worked in schools, but what I find is Black people are too lazy, too caught up in other issues, that they're not taking responsibility and sowing into their own generation, investing in their own children. Like we always hear the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. We've lost that. We lost our name, we lost our culture, we lost the type of music, we lost a lot of things living in these countries. But it's for us to pull together and to be united. Keep going to the government and to the council, begging and groveling for money that is probably due and we should have. It's not working. That's why they got a noose around our own necks again, because we keep going begging bowls all the time. Let us put our own money and invest our own homes and make things turn around for ourselves and for our children. Because this is why the Asians and the other national looks down on us, because we're always on street corners or we're always begging. We need to be self-sufficient and help ourselves and help our own children. They're our children. We had them. We slept with the men, and whether they're good or bad. We produce children. Yeah, and we're raising the boys who are probably no good or not behaving themselves. And we're raising the girls as well that's sleeping with these boys that's producing these children. So I'm just saying, let's take responsibility and have a look inwardly at what we're doing to our own communities.
I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, you have to be in the system to be changing it, and you have to be outside trying to dismantle it. We need to be in all areas of people. What's the 9 areas of, you know what I'm trying to say, the 9 areas of which Dr. Cressley, please someone help me here. But we need to be in those
hierarchy of needs.
Thank you. No, it's not that. It's we just need to be in all of those areas. Economics, we need to be yeah. But essentially what I'm trying to say is, the point is, what you just said, sis, is that we need to be in both areas. We need to be inside the system trying to dismantle it and change it, and we need to be outside trying to dismantle it and change it, because we need to change things. And, you know, our money is being spent, you know, building up the system.
I agree with you, Tony, and I agree with the sister that spoke. One thing I will say is that we do have a bit of a nostalgia about other communities and how they get their money. One thing I learned when I ran to be a local councillor in my local area was that I can speak for the Asian community because there's a lot of them, and the Jewish community. What they did, they strategically placed themselves within the local authority, made friends with those that were in senior positions. And what they did was, when funding came up, for example, there were several youth clubs that were running in our local area. And these Asian organizations who would have maybe 4 young people in there were given the sum of £3.6 million. and Black organisations were given £5,000. Now, the only reason and the only difference was because, number one, those that were making decisions at the top were Asian. Number two, they were placed in front of the decision makers of who gives out the funding applications. And we have this belief that all of these groups use their own money to fund their schools. No, they don't. They actually use a lot of government money. They use a lot of funding money. And then, yes, they do. They have businesses, and they also use some of their business money, because if you can write it off against tax. You also use one thing that's called, I was going to say fair access panel, which is not it, community asset transfer, which is, I explained this last week, drugs money, stop it. Well, there is a lot of drugs money in those communities, not just ours. They use community asset transfer to gain access to buildings, to be able to have the ownership of buildings and pay less than 20% to the local authority in tax, rent, or anything else. So I learned that through running to be a local councillor, and I was absolutely astounded that we don't know this. The only difference I think it is that we just need to be more informed. Because when we're informed, one thing we know to do very well is be able to utilize the system to basically meet our needs. But because we're not informed, that's the reason why we're not being able to access and utilize it. Do I have a problem with getting funding? No. Like Tony said, it is our money. So we pay council tax. I don't. We pay council tax and all of these things. We have a right to that money, but we also have a right to kick up a fuss and be like, well, no, you're not giving it to us. You're giving it to the Browns, but you're not giving it to the Blacks. Give me my money, yeah? Reparations, Windrush, all the rest of it. And by the way, I'm going to get Katie on again to talk about reparations. The Windrush as well. But go on, Shireen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I value what you said, Charlie, and definitely that is a good principle to have. But the reality is, in normal society, it doesn't actually work that way. Not all parents are equipped with the ability, the knowledge, the parental skills in order to deal with their child effectively. My issue is, when you know that you don't, do you accept that? And do you seek someone else who can help you to do that? So that is where the issue comes in, because everybody's not educated at the same level or have the facilities that everyone else has, or even have the knowledge when it comes to raising children, you know? So we have to look at that as well. Another thing I agree with you is that, yes, as a community, we do need to come together. We do need to come together in terms of learning how to apply for funding, where to get it, in order to help our community. If there are funders out there who know how to do a funding application, join Black organizations and help them to go through that process. And I agree in terms of collaboration, which is very important, because I think a lot of Black services who do very well are dotted all over the country, but they're not collaborating together. And I think that collaboration will create the unity that we need.
Carla, is there anything you want to add to this? Oh, there you are, you're clapping. Talk up, my girl.
I'm in full agreement with everything that's being said, most definitely. And I think as a people, you know, we're in Manchester, and I always, you know, connect with organisations from London, because you guys are the cities, you're facing some stuff before issues reach to Manchester. And I say, if we work together, that makes us more powerful and stronger. So if we say, okay, we're working with an organisation in London that's done the research and it already work in progress, then you come to Manchester, then they cannot turn around and say to us, it doesn't work. It does work, because London's already using it. Birmingham's using it. We have to work together, connect. And like I said, I've always, for the past 8-9 years, you know, I've worked with Manhood Academy, I've worked with Black Child Agenda. I follow you, I hear the information, and I echo that in Manchester. I've done conferences down there with Cheryl, we've done it over the Zoom, and she's forever bringing that information. But again, like what Shireen said, we need to connect the dots together and work together. No matter what, if you have a program that you think it benefits your children up there, well, it'll benefit the children in Manchester, it'll benefit the children in Birmingham, Huddersfield, Blackburn, you know. and we should be working together as a people. And definitely, I echo what the other woman says. Some of this is our own dirty washing that we do need to sit down as a community, as a people, and sort out. It's not for us to be shouting it out there on the social media first, making people aware of our, you know, issues, when we should really be talking in-house and protecting our children and our next generation from issues that they're going to be slandered by, or they're going to have to pick up, you know, what, you know, adults have put down. And, you know, I echo everything that other people are saying. And I think, yeah, we need to continue to do this more and more. Let's not give up. Yeah,
absolutely. And Shirley, sorry, go on, Colette. Oh, sorry. Shirley, one of the things that you mentioned about home ed, we're going to have a home ed, because our home ed ones always tend to go very well. But the same thing you said about home ed is something I've been saying for years. And Shireen was right that not all parents are capable of being able to home ed. However, and for me, when I first heard that, I was like, what? Why did you have children then? That's a side issue. One of the things, like I said, with the community asset transfer, in all of our communities, whether we live in the south, the east, the north, wherever, we have churches and buildings in abundance. And the main one in our community is churches. Now, most churches are closed during the daytimes of the week. And if you know that you're a home edder and there are parents who are trying to home ed and struggle, we have 2 or 3, I think 3 home ed groups on WhatsApp we've got right now. And people are from
Okay, Charlotte's gone quiet for a moment.
Can I just say, when it comes to homeschooling, you meet up with other parents and you can share the load. As you said, not everybody's educated to a certain level, but we can learn. That's what I'm saying. We're never too old to learn. And some people are dyslexic or they've got special needs, then we support them. That's why I said, that, you know, that proverb, it takes a whole village to raise a child. We need to come together. You know, I find it extremely frustrating sometimes to hear excuses and excuses and excuses coming out of our mouth, you know, when we need to just pull what we've got together, resources, whatever we have. Like we just said, churches are open. The youth halls have been closed down, but there's plenty of churches in every area that sits quietly all day. Even if we access them for 4 hours or 5 hours, that's enough to help our own children. And sometimes it's basic stuff that they need. Just coping, budgeting, money, how to navigate a career, how to get out there into the workforce.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons I highlighted the fact that these services are so fragmented, because we have them, but we need to connect the dots in terms of bringing them together, because there's some parents who don't know that these services exist. And so what is important is actually we probably need to create a directory of some sort, you know, around the UK that actually dots through the services that are culturally appropriate for us, because I think that's quite important.
That would be NABS.
When it comes to whole,
that would be NABS. NABS have got all that. NABS has every Black educational institution listed on its online directory, nabss.com.
Yeah, but when it comes to homeschooling, I mean, you'd have to do your research locally to find out what parents are wanting to do that. And then the parents coming together to decide who can do what and who is willing to do what, because obviously people are working and trying to, you know, run a home. So it would need to be local research and who can do the teaching of and what subject's going to be taught.
Don't forget, my brother, as a teacher, I've just spent the last 2 years remote teaching. So children are now accustomed to learning online. Online learning is very underestimated. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it is a definite way to look at the whole process of learning.
We've got 2 minutes, guys.
You're right. You're right, Tony. You're right. That is a good forum thing. medium that we have now. Yeah, you're right. That means homeschooling is actually made easier by that, actually. So you don't actually need the parents to be able to have the skills. You can get out people like yourself and teachers, people are already teachers. Yeah, that's a good resource.
Good. I'm glad you were having a good old natter. Right, I'm going to download this Zoom. It will be available back on YouTube within the week or within a few days. Thank you very much for all of my panel, and thank you very much for everyone that gave a contribution. We will be back next week with another topic, next week, Wednesday. Yes, you're right, Lisa. Schools are empty, churches are empty, pastors need to give you them for free. Or you pay just a basic cost and tap in that way, start meeting up with other parents. As someone said about the village, create your village on your doorstep. There's no point looking in Croydon when you live in Brent. Create the village on your doorstep, utilize what's around your home and your young people, and that's how you build it. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone that's joined, and we will see you next year, no problem. We will see you next year.
Next year?
I know, right?
Thank you for correcting that.
Thank you, Cheryl.
No problem. Thank you all for taking part, and it's been very informative. And we're going to ban up some of these people that make the decisions on our money with Fiwi money. So yes, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Enjoy the sunshine in Africa.
Thank you.
Hi, Barbara.
Oh, hi.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheryl, you still there?
Yeah.
Hi, Cheryl, it's Marsh Lee.
Hi.
Get a response. I know Kessie had sent me a response from the email because, you know, I send the response to you that I get from the IOP.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. I definitely have seen it. But message tomorrow, I'm around, so contact me tomorrow.
All right, on the WhatsApp call, on the WhatsApp number.
Yeah, just find out what my calendar looks like, because I know I have 2 hearings first thing in the morning. So ask Kessie what my calendar looks like, and I've got one at 10 and one at 11. But I believe after that I'm good. But don't quote me on that. So I'll just email her and say that you want to speak to me tomorrow, and she will tell you what time is the best time for me to get through to you, or for you to get through.
Okay, no
to
problem.
me.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thanks.
That's fine. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, Shireen. Thank you so much. Where's Carlette? Carlette gone. She's gone about our business.
I think Tony's still there.
Is Tony there?
Tony?
Yes, I was eating I was eating a piece of chicken. That was why I come up.
That's like we had to go get water.
That's great. Tony, I need to make contact with you.
Okay.
You know, because part of your service is one of the service that we want to offer for SAB Black Therapy Network. So we have a number of therapists from different genres within our community. And that is definitely an area that I think would be really good to tap into, that we can actually signpost other individuals to as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, happy to have a conversation when you're ready.
Okay. All right, Cheryl. Well, take care.
Thank you so much. Yes, you two can hook up. You're all in the same group, so his number is in there.
Okay. Oh, so that's you. It's just his number. I didn't know it's Tony. Okay, no problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tony's in there. It's just I put Carla's number in, but yeah, I'll put her in that group so you lot have all got each other's numbers as well.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me, Cheryl.
Yes.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Shireen.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
Take care.